Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam was the son of Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam and Rahel. He had a younger brother named Binyamin from his mother. Yaqub alayhi salam had 12 sons in total. Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam loved Yusuf alayhi salam and Binyamin more than his other children. This made the other brothers very angry. One night, Yusuf alayhi salam had a wonderful dream. He saw 11 stars in the sky and the sun and the moon. They were all bowing down before him. The young prophet was quite amazed by this dream. He wondered why stars bowed before him. He didn't understand the meaning, so he went to his father and told him about his dream. Father, I saw 11 stars, the sun and the moon in a dream. He told his father. I saw all of them bowing down to me. Yaqub alayhi salam was a prophet, and he understood the meaning of his dream, and he was very happy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you, Yusuf. The old prophet told his son, this dream means that you will be given knowledge and prophecy. Yaqub alayhi salam was a wise and old man, so he knew that his other sons would not be happy to hear about Yusuf's dream. So he warned him, my son, do not tell any of your brothers about your dream. They will be jealous of you and they will become your enemies. No, father, I will not tell them, replied his son. But the young and innocent boy went and told his brothers about the dream. When the brothers heard about this, they got really angry. Why does our father love Yusuf more than us? Asked one of the brothers. Maybe it's because he's so beautiful, replied another brother. Our father has gone astray, said another. Why don't we kill Yusuf and get rid of him? Asked another brother. Where would we kill him? Asked the other. We should send him away to a distant land, said another brother. Then one of the brothers said, there is no need to kill him to get rid of him. Look here, let us throw him into a well beside the road. He will be picked up by the travelers and they will take him as a slave to a distant land. He will disappear from our father's eyes, and that will serve our purpose as well. Then the 10 brothers went to their father and requested him to send Yusuf along with them. But Yaqub alayhi salam was very afraid for Yusuf. He knew that the brothers were jealous of him and that they did not love him. He refused at first. Yusuf is our dear little brother, said one of them. We are the sons of the same father. So what are you afraid of? Please send him with us, said another brother. We will watch over him. I fear the wolf may take him while you are playing, said Yaqub alayhi salam. Never, replied a brother. How can the wolf eat him when we are there? We are strong and we can save him, father. After a lot of compulsion from the brothers, the Prophet gave them permission to take Yusuf along with them. The next day, the brothers took Yusuf alayhi salam with them to the forest. They were very excited as they could finally get rid of him. They walked through the forest and went directly to the well, as they had planned. They leaned over the well on the pretext of drinking water. It was then that one of the brothers put his arms around Yusuf and held him tightly. Startled by his unusual behavior, Yusuf struggled to free himself. Then all the brothers joined and held him so that he could not move. Then one of them removed his shirt. Together, they lifted Yusuf and threw him into the deep well. Yusuf cried for help and he begged his brothers to save him. But the brothers shook their heads and paid no heed to the pleas of their brother. Yusuf was all alone in the deep, dark well. He was very scared and he wept. It was then Allah told him, Do not be sad. Do not be afraid. Allah is with you. Something great is going to happen to you. Your brothers will come before you and you will remind them of what they did. Yusuf alayhi salam was saved by the shallow water. He then clung to a rock ledge and climbed on top of it. The brothers then got together and said, "What shall we tell our father?" Then one of them said, "We will tell him you were right, father. A wolf did eat him." Yes, the brothers agreed. "We will tell our father that the wolf ate him." The brothers then caught a ram and killed it. They took Yusuf's shirt and dipped it in the blood. "Now our father will believe us," they said. The brothers came weeping to their father. "Father," they said, "we went running races and left Yusuf with our bags. But by the time we returned, a wolf ate our little brother." "Yes, father," said another. "Look at his shirt." But Yaqub alayhi salam knew that they were lying. He was a prophet and a very wise man. He knew that when a wolf eats someone, it rips his clothes. But the shirt of Yusuf was whole, and it had been only dipped in blood. That's how the prophet knew that the story of the wolf was made up. "This is the story that you have made up," he said to them. "I am a patient man and I will wait for my son." Yaqub alayhi salam couldn't sleep that night and kept thinking about his son. It was a terrible time for Yusuf alayhi salam in that deep well, out in the wilderness, hidden in darkness. It was a difficult time for both the father and the son. A group of people were traveling to Egypt through that wilderness. They were thirsty and looking for water. When they saw the well, they sent a man to bring them some water. The man came to the well and let down a bucket. Yusuf was happy when he saw the bucket coming down, and he grabbed hold of it. As the man began to haul, he felt the load was unusually heavy. When he peeped into the well, he was shocked to see a young man clinging to the rope. He held the rope tightly and shouted to his friends, "Better give me hand, fellows. Looks like I found real treasure in the well." His companions rushed to the well and helped him to pull the stranger holding onto the rope. The men were startled when they saw the handsome youth beaming with an angelic smile. They knew that they would get a handsome prize for this young man, and money was all that mattered to them. They immediately chained Yusuf and took him to Egypt, far away from his home. They traveled for many days and nights through the desert. And after many days of travel, they finally arrived in Egypt. The travelers went to the market and put the prophet for auction. "Who will buy this handsome young boy?" they shouted. The news spread fast, and people gathered in hundreds to watch the unusually handsome young boy. After an auction, the Aziz, chief minister of Egypt, bought the young prophet for a few silver coins. When they reached the palace, the prophet was pleasantly surprised when the chief minister ordered his men to remove his chains. Aziz then told the prophet never to betray his trust and also promised him that he never be ill-treated. "Make his stay comfortable here," Aziz said to his wife. "He is such an intelligent young man." Yusuf alayhi salam felt at ease at last. He knew that he had a shelter and he was well taken care of. He thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over and over again. It was not very long ago that he was cast into a deep, dark well with no hope of coming out alive. Then he was enslaved and he was chained. But now he could enjoy all the luxuries of the palace, and he had plenty of food to eat as well. However, his heart ached with longing for his parents and his little brother Binyamin. Yusuf alayhi salam was made the personal attendant of the chief minister's wife. He was obedient and ever obliging. With his pleasant manners and charming behavior, he won everybody's heart. Soon, Yusuf's beauty became the talk of the town. People referred to him as the most attractive man that they had ever seen. His face carried immaculate beauty. It was the purity of his soul reflecting on his face. As he grew older, he gained wisdom and knowledge. He soon became a good speaker, always captivating the audience. His master realized that Yusuf alayhi salam was the most honest, straightforward, and noble person he had met in his life. And after some time, he was put in charge of the household, and the chief minister treated him like his son. The wife of the chief minister, Zulekha, admired Yusuf alayhi salam very much. As she watched him and listened to him speak, her passion for the Prophet increased by the day. The chief minister's wife could not resist her temptations anymore, and it caused her sleepless nights. She was madly in love with the Prophet. Zulekha could not control her passion any longer. One day, when the Prophet was alone with her in the bedroom, she tried to kiss him. But Yusuf alayhi salam denied, as he was an upright worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He then walked away from her. The Prophet's refusal heightened the passion of Zulekha. As he was moving towards the door, she ran after him and she caught hold of his shirt. While she was tugging, she tore his shirt and she held the torn piece in her hand. Then the door opened suddenly and there stood her husband and another relative of hers. Seeing her husband, the crooked woman immediately changed her tone. "Your man tried to grab me," she said, showing him the torn piece of cloth. "You must put him in prison now." She was now trying to accuse the Prophet of molesting her. But the Prophet denied it. "It was she who tried to grab me," he said. Aziz and her relative examined the shirt to find out who was saying the truth. They found out that it was torn at the back. The chief minister then looked at his wife and said, "If he was the one to attack you, the shirt would have been torn in the front. But Yusuf's shirt is torn in the back, which means you are lying," he said angrily. When Aziz realized that his wife had been lying, he apologized to the Prophet for his wife's indecent behavior. He then asked his wife to beg forgiveness from the Prophet. The news of the incident spread in the town like a wildfire. "Look at her," some of them said. "She tried to seduce her slave." Others laughed at her behavior. Zulekha was upset with people gossiping about her. She honestly believed that it was not easy for any woman to resist a man as handsome as Yusuf alayhi salam. To prove her helplessness, she planned to subject the women to the same temptation that she had faced. She decided to invite all the women in her circle for a banquet at her palace. The banquet was reserved exclusively for women. Everyone who were invited turned up for the event, and most of them secretly hoped that they would get a chance to see Yusuf alayhi salam. Then suddenly Zulekha decided to open the topic. "Listen everyone," she spoke to the guests. "I have heard of those who say I am in love with my slave." At once, everybody stopped what they were doing and fixed their gaze on the chief minister's wife. "I admit that he is a charming fellow. I do not deny that I love him, as I have loved him for a long time." Everyone at the banquet were stunned to hear this confession, coming from none other than the wife of the chief minister. In the meantime, Zulekha asked her servants to distribute the fruits among the guests. After finishing the dinner, the guests began cutting their fruit. It was at this moment that Zulekha summoned Yusuf alayhi salam to make an appearance. He entered the hall gracefully with his gaze lowered. When Zulekha called him by name, he raised his head. The guests were astonished and dumbfounded when they saw the face of Yusuf alayhi salam. His face was shining with angelic beauty. It reflected pure innocence, so much that one could feel the peace in the depth of his soul. They exclaimed in astonishment while they were cutting the fruit, as all of their eyes were on the Prophet. The women began to cut their palms absent-mindedly without feeling any pain. One of the ladies gasped, "This is not a mortal being." Another stammered, "He is a noble angel." All their attention were on the Prophet, and no one noticed the blood flowing from their hands. Then Zulaykha stood up. "Look at your hands," she said to them. When the women looked at their hands, they realized that they were bleeding, and they wrapped the towel on top of it. "It's because of him that I have been blamed," she said. "I do not deny that I tried to seduce him. You too would have been enchanted by him, and see what happened to your hands. If he refuses to obey my order again, then he shall be put in prison," she said to everyone. "O Lord," the Prophet calmly replied, "I would rather go to the prison than committing a sin." The Prophet then quietly left the room with his gaze lowered. That night, Zulaykha convinced her husband that the only way to save her honor was by imprisoning the Prophet. The chief minister loved the Prophet like a son, and he knew that he was innocent. He had never met another man who was so loyal to him. It was with a heavy heart that Aziz ordered Yusuf alayhi salam to be arrested and imprisoned. It was not an easy decision for him to put an innocent man behind the bars. However, he was left with no choice. That day, the Prophet was chained and put inside the prison, and this is where he had to face his third test. It was in the prison that the Prophet had to face his third test. It was during this period that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with an extraordinary gift. The Prophet was blessed with the ability to interpret dreams. The people in the prison knew that Yusuf alayhi salam was a noble young man with great knowledge and a merciful heart. They loved and respected him. At about the same time, two other men landed in the prison. One was the cupbearer of the king, and the other was the king's cook. That night, both the new inmates had a strange dream. When they woke up, they were confused as they could not understand the meaning of the dream. The next day, when they saw the Prophet, they realized that he was not a common criminal. They approached him and told him about their dream. "I had a very strange dream. I saw that I was standing in a place with bread on my head. There were two birds eating the bread on top of my head." On hearing this, the Prophet first called them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He told them the meaning of his dream. The dream meant that the cook was going to be crucified until he died. Then the Prophet asked the cupbearer to tell him about his dream. "I saw that I was standing inside the palace," said the cupbearer, "and I was serving wine to the king." The Prophet prayed for some time, and he said that the cupbearer will be soon let free and that he will return to the service of the king. The Prophet then asked the cupbearer to talk to the king about him and tell him that there was a wronged soul named Yusuf in the prison. What the Prophet predicted soon happened, and the cook was crucified just like the Prophet foretold. The cupbearer returned to the palace as well. But as soon as he returned to service, Shaitan made him forget about the Prophet, and therefore Yusuf alayhi salam remained in prison for a few more years. After a few years, one night the king was sleeping in his palace. The king had a strange dream that night. And in his dream, he saw that he was standing at the banks of River Nile. He saw that the water was receding, revealing the bare mud. He saw the fish skipping and jumping without water. Then he saw 7 fat cows emerging from the water, followed by 7 lean cows. The lean cows then began swallowing the fat cows. The king was terrified seeing this. He then saw 7 ears of green corn growing by the riverbank. Suddenly they disappeared, and in its place grew 7 dry ears of corn. The king woke up terrified from his dream. He was shocked and depressed, as he could not understand the meaning of his dream. The next day, he called his ministers, priests, and advisors and told them about his dream. The sorcerers said, "This is a very confusing dream. How can any of that happen?" The priest said, "Perhaps you had a heavy dinner. Maybe you slept without a blanket," said the chief minister. All of them said it was only a nightmare and there was nothing to worry about. The news reached the cupbearer. He recollected the dream that he had while he was in prison, and suddenly he remembered Yusuf alayhi salam. He ran to the king to tell him about the prophet. "He had asked me to tell you about his innocence," he said to the king, "but I forgot." When he explained how Yusuf alayhi salam had interpreted his dream while in prison, king sent him to meet the prophet. The cupbearer met the prophet and told him about the king's dream. The prophet prayed to Allah and then explained the meaning of the dream. "There will be 7 years of rich harvest in the kingdom," he said. "If the land is cultivated properly, there will be a good harvest, and people will have more than enough food. This will be followed by 7 years of drought in the kingdom. People will not have enough to eat, and there will be scarcity of food all over Egypt." When the cupbearer told the king about the interpretation, the king was fascinated. He commanded that Yusuf alayhi salam be set free and presented before him at once. When the king's envoy arrived at the prison to set him free, the prophet refused to leave the prison. "I will not leave the prison until my innocence is proven," he told them. The envoy returned to the king. "Where is Yusuf?" asked the king. "Did I not command you to fetch him?" "He refused to leave until his innocence is established," they replied. The king realized that the prophet was unfairly put in prison, so he immediately ordered an inquiry. Zulaykha, wife of the chief minister, was brought into his court, and so were the wives of the other ministers who had attended the lavish banquet. "What is the story of Yusuf?" the king asked them. "Is it true that he tried to molest the chief minister's wife?" "He didn't do anything," said one woman. "He did her no harm," said another. "He is innocent as the angels," said another. Everyone's attention now turned to Zulaykha. She now wore a wrinkled face. She was overwhelmed with sorrow while the prophet was in prison. "I tempted him, but he refused," she boldly confessed. "So he is innocent as he says," said the king. When the prophet came to the palace, the king was stunned by this handsome young man. He spoke to the prophet for a while to test his knowledge. The replies of the prophet stunned the king, and he was convinced that he was very intelligent indeed. Then the conversation turned to the dream. The prophet advised the king to start planning for years of famine ahead. He informed the king that the famine would not only affect Egypt, but all other neighboring countries as well. The king then appointed the prophet as the controller of granaries. It was his responsibility to guard the nation's harvest and make plans for the anticipated famine. The wheels of time had turned by now. The prophet who was in prison till a few months ago had now become one of the senior most officials in Egypt. During the 7 good years that followed, the prophet had full control over the cultivation, harvesting, and storage of crops. He did his duties faithfully, and he carefully saved the grains for the harsh years ahead. Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam had now become the controller of the granaries in Egypt. During the 7 good years, the prophet had full control over the cultivation, harvesting, and storage of crops. The prophet saved enough grains during the abundant years. And then, like the prophet had predicted, drought followed, and famine spread throughout the nation. The leaves turned yellow, and not even a single drop of rain fell from the sky. But nobody in Egypt died of hunger, for the prophet had saved more than enough grains for the harsh years. "You were right, Yusuf," the king said to the prophet. "It's only because of you that our people are not suffering. All our neighbors are asking for our help. What should I tell them?" he asked. "Allah saved us," the prophet replied. "We have plenty of grains with us. I think this is the time we should help our neighbors. We can give them the grains at a small price. Many lives can be saved." "I agree with you," the king said. He then ordered to distribute the grains evenly to those in need. This famine affected Canaan as well. Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam heard the news of grains being distributed in Egypt. He decided to send his sons to Egypt to get the grains, all of them except Binyamin. The brothers traveled for many days and finally arrived in Egypt. Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam heard about the 10 brothers who had arrived from a distant land. When they arrived to collect the grains, the prophet immediately recognized them. But the brothers didn't. How could they? To them, he no longer existed. They had thrown him in the well many years ago. The prophet then met them and welcomed them warmly. After giving them the provisions, he asked where they had come from. "We are 11 brothers, son of a noble prophet. We come from Canaan," they replied. "I count only 10 here." The prophet asked them, "Our youngest brother is at home, tending our father's needs." On hearing this, the prophet's eyes filled up with tears. He longed to meet his father and his little brother. "Are you truthful people?" he asked them. The brothers were confused. "What reasons do we have to lie to you?" they asked him. "If what you say is the truth, then bring your youngest brother, and I'll double your rations. But if you do not bring him to me, then you better not try entering Egypt again," he warned them. The brothers agreed and said that they will need their father's permission. The prophet then asked his servant to place the bag of money they paid secretly in one of the grain sacks. After many days of travel, they reached Canaan. They greeted their father and said, "We were denied some supplies because you did not let Binyamin come with us. The controller of granaries has promised to give us extra provision if you let him come with us. Please, father, send him with us, and we shall take good care of him." But the old prophet said sadly, "I will never let Binyamin travel with you. How can I trust you knowing what you did with Yusuf?" Later, when they opened the grain sack, they were surprised to find their money purse inside. "Look, father," they said, "the noble official has returned our money." This is a proof that they will not harm our brother." But the old prophet refused again. After a few months, when they had no more grains, Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam asked them to travel to Egypt. "We cannot go there without Binyamin," said one of the brothers. They reminded him of the warning given by the Egyptian official. The old prophet finally agreed, but only after they took an oath to bring him back safely. "Allah is witness to your pledge," he reminded them before they left. The Prophet blessed them as they set off for Egypt and prayed for their protection. The brothers traveled for many days through the desert, and they took good care of Binyamin as well. When they arrived in Egypt, Yusuf alayhi salam welcomed them heartily. He prepared the feast for them and made them seated in pairs. The Prophet sat next to his beloved brother, Binyamin. He noticed that Binyamin was weeping. "Why are you crying?" he asked his little brother. "If my brother Yusuf had been here, I would have sat next to him," Binyamin replied. That night, when the Prophet and Binyamin were alone in the room, the Prophet asked his brother, "Would you like to have me as your brother?" But Binyamin respectfully answered that he regarded him as a wonderful person, but he could never take the place of his brother. On hearing this, the Prophet broke down and said, "Binyamin, I am your brother who was lost. Fate has brought us together after so many years." Binyamin exploded with joy when he heard this. "Listen to me," said the Prophet. "This should remain a secret for the time being." Binyamin agreed and he flung his arms around the Prophet. They cried and shed tears of joy. The next day, when the brothers were loading the bags of grains, the Prophet ordered one of his servants to keep the golden measuring cup inside Binyamin's saddlebag secretly. When the brothers were ready to set out, the soldiers came running to them. "Oh, brothers, stop there! You are thieves!" shouted the soldiers. When the people around heard this, they gathered around the brothers. "What have you lost?" asked the confused brothers. "The king's golden cup," said the soldier. "We didn't come here to steal," said another brother. The Prophet had instructed one of the soldiers to ask the brothers the following question: "What punishment would you give for a thief?" "According to our law, whoever steals becomes a slave to the owner of the property," answered a brother. "We shall apply your law instead of the Egyptian law then," said the soldiers. They started searching the bags one by one. When they reached Binyamin, they pulled out the king's cup from his bag. The brothers were stunned. They thought of their father and the pledge they had taken. They began to beg the Prophet for mercy. "Yusuf, O minister, take one of us instead," they pleaded. "How can I set him free knowing that he stole the king's cup? It would be sinful." Judah, the eldest of the brothers, was much worried, and he told the others, "We promised our father that we will bring Binyamin back. I will stay back here and I will not leave this land until my father permits me, or until Binyamin is released." The brothers left enough provisions for Judah, who stayed at a tavern awaiting the fate of Binyamin. The Prophet secretly arranged to watch over Judah's well-being as well. The Prophet was testing the sincerity of the brothers, and he wanted to find if they would return for their brothers. After many days of traveling, the brothers reached their house. "Father, your son has stolen," One of the brothers said. The old prophet was confused and he didn't understand what they meant. So he asked them to explain what had happened. The brothers told him everything. How they were given a feast at the palace, how they got the grains, and how the king's golden cup was found in Binyamin's saddlebag. When the prophet heard their story, he knew that Allah had a hand in it and understood that Allah was testing him. He was made to suffer for Yusuf before, and now he was made to suffer for Binyamin. He knew that God was testing him, otherwise he would not make him suffer for two of his sons. He then said, perhaps Allah will bring all of them to me. Allah is the all-knowing, all-wise. He found solace in his prayers, and it strengthened his faith and patience as well. The Prophet had wept for so many years of the loss of his son Yusuf alayhi salam, and now he wept for Binyamin as well. After weeping for so many years, the Prophet had now lost his sight. "O father, why are you destroying yourself in this way?" pleaded his sons. "I complain of my grief and sorrow to Allah. I know from Allah what you do not know." The Prophet replied. He then asked his sons to go to Egypt once again and not to give up hope. When they arrived in Egypt, they took Judah and they went to meet Yusuf alayhi salam. They begged and they pleaded to the Prophet. By now, sorrow and love rose up in the Prophet. He could no longer bear to listen to the griefs of his own brothers. He thought, how long can I conceal the truth from them when they are in need? How long can I go without seeing my father? Then he told them, "Do you know what you did to Yusuf and his brother when you were ignorant?" The brothers knew that this was a secret known only to themselves and Yusuf. "Are you our brother Yusuf?" they asked him. "I am Yusuf," he replied, "and Binyamin is my brother. Allah has been good to us. Whoever fears Allah and is patient, Allah always rewards them." The brothers began to tremble with fear, but Yusuf comforted them. "We have sinned, brother," they said. "Allah has certainly preferred you more than us. May Allah forgive you," said the Prophet. "He is the most merciful of the merciful." The Prophet then embraced his brothers and wept with joy. It was not possible for him to leave Egypt, as he had many responsibilities. So he advised his brothers to leave without him. He then gave them his shirt and said, "Take this shirt of mine and throw it over my father's face. He will recover his sight. Then bring me all of your family." The brothers agreed and left for Canaan. As the caravan approached Canaan, Yaqub alayhi salam sensed the scent of Yusuf in the air. He stood up all of a sudden, got dressed and went to meet his sons. "Yaqub has come out of his room today," the wife of his eldest son remarked. "How do you feel today?" asked the other. "I can smell Yusuf in the air," replied the Prophet. The wives then left him alone, saying that there was no hope for him. "He will die weeping over Yusuf," said one. "He said he could smell him. Has he gone mad?" said the other. That night, the old man asked for a glass of milk to break his fasting. As the caravan approached nearer, the old prophet kept praying to the Lord. And when the caravan finally arrived, the old prophet went outside and asked, "I smell Yusuf in the air. Is it real or am I hallucinating?" "You are certainly mistaken," said one of the wives. But the Prophet was indeed telling the truth. The bearer of the good news arrived and placed Yusuf's shirt over his face. It was a miracle. As soon as the shirt was placed, Yaqub alayhi salam got his sight back. "Didn't I tell you that I know from Allah what you don't know?" he said to them happily. The brothers realized their mistake. "We have sinned, father. Please ask forgiveness for our actions," they said. "I will ask Lord to forgive you. He is all forgiving and all merciful," replied the Prophet. Then the old Prophet left for Egypt to meet his son. Yusuf alayhi salam received him with great joy. Then Yusuf alayhi salam placed his father on the throne. The old prophet's happiness knew no bounds. Then his father and all his brothers prostrated before Yusuf alayhi salam. This is the dream that I saw when I was young, said Yusuf alayhi salam. I saw 11 stars, the sun and the moon bowing down to me. My Lord has made it true. The Prophet then met the king, seeking his permission for his family to settle down in Egypt. The Prophet was a great asset to the kingdom, and the king was very happy to agree. The great power and responsibility did not distract the Prophet from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He remembered and worshipped Allah all the time. The Prophet did not want to die the death of a king. He did not like to be gathered around the people of royalty. He wanted to die the death of a slave to Allah and to be gathered around the righteous. Yusuf alayhi salam, at the time of his death, asked his brothers to bury him beside his forefathers. So when he passed away, he was mummified and placed in a coffin until a suitable time to be taken out of Egypt. It is said that he died at the age of 110.